The Detroit Lions just dropped the most exciting defensive news of the entire offseason, and Lion Nation is losing their minds. Alright, Detroit. Lock in. Buckle up. Put the coffee down because you might just spill it. What is happening right now with your Detroit Lions is not some slow, boring offseason drip of nothing news. No. What is happening right now is a full-on, legitimate, fire alarm-worthy transformation of a defense that last season had Lions fans pulling their hair out, throwing remotes at the television, and questioning every single life decision that led them to fall in love with this football team. But today? Today is different. Today, we are talking about a defense that is about to get completely reimagined, rebuilt, and recharged. And the news coming out of Allen Park is exactly what every single Lions fan has been screaming about for the better part of 2 years. Kelvin Shepard just told the whole world what Lions fans needed to hear. DJ Reed just dropped a bombshell about his health. And Ennis RakeStraw? He just showed up to OTAs looking like a completely different human being. This is the video. This is the moment. Let's get into it. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the thing that has been haunting Detroit Lions fans since about week 10 of last season, when this defense that started the year looking like a genuine force slowly turned into something that opposing quarterbacks were actually excited to see. We are talking about a Lions defense that, from weeks 10 through 18, ranked 22nd in defensive success rate, 26th in points per game allowed, and a flat-out embarrassing 27th in yards allowed. 27th. In the entire league. The defense didn't just take a step backward, it fell down a flight of stairs, rolled into the basement, and took the elevator further underground. And the worst part? The offense was cooking. Jared Goff was dealing. The weapons were there. And the defense kept undermining everything by leaving opposing offenses free to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, against whoever they wanted to throw it to, including some matchups so obviously exploitable that even casual fans in the stands were yelling, "Why is that linebacker covering that running back on a wheel route?" Which brings us to the absolute centerpiece of today's conversation, Kelvin Shepard. Now look. When the Lions gave Shepard the defensive coordinator job after Aaron Glenn left for Green Bay, there were real questions. Real, legitimate questions. Because the biggest concern wasn't whether Shepard understood the defense. He'd been in Detroit's building long enough to know the system inside and out. The question was whether he'd have the adaptability, the flexibility, the willingness to look at a game and say, "You know what? What we're doing isn't working. We need to change it." Because that was the Aaron Glenn problem in a nutshell. Glenn was stubborn. Beautifully stubborn in some ways, committed to his principles, but stubbornly, maddeningly unwilling to adjust when teams had clearly figured out how to attack what Detroit was doing. And it cost this team games. Plural. It cost them playoff games that should have been won, and regular season games where the Lions were basically daring opponents to pick on specific mismatches over and over again. So what does Shepard say now, heading into his second season? He says, and these are the words every Lions fan needed to hear, being able to adapt in those moments and not being hard-headed and stubborn. Yeah, we have principles. We're not moving off those, but again, adapting and adjusting within that. Read that again. Let it marinate. He didn't just throw out a cliché coach speak line about getting better. He specifically, directly, intentionally called out the very thing that sunk this defense last year, being hard-headed and stubborn. He looked himself in the mirror, he looked Dan Campbell in the eye, they spent the offseason grinding out what went wrong, and the answer they came up with was brutally honest. We were too rigid. We were too predictable. And that is going to change. And change it already has, in the form of what might be the single most important schematic shift this Lions defense has made in years. Last year, the Lions ran a league-low 33.8% nickel looks on defense. They were also one of only 2 teams in the entire NFL to not run any dime looks whatsoever, and they ran base defensive looks a staggering 62.6% of the time, the highest rate in the league by a wide margin. Heavy sports, let that sink in. While the rest of the NFL had evolved into a pass-happy, spread formation, 5-wide receiver league where nickel and dime packages are basically the default, the Lions were out there stubbornly lining up with 3 linebackers like it was 2003. 3 linebackers. On the field. Against teams throwing it 40 times a game to slot receivers running crossing routes, and running backs releasing out of the backfield into space. It was like bringing a rotary phone to a smartphone convention. Now, Dan Campbell and Kelvin Shepard have reportedly built 3 different defensive packages to install into the Lions system, designed to make them more versatile and maximize their personnel. Adha Sports, and one of the headline shifts is crystal clear. One change fans will see is a greater use of the nickel defense, where one of the three linebackers in a standard 4-3 setup is replaced with a fifth defensive back to improve coverage. Sideline report: 5 defensive backs, a slot corner, 2 outside corners, 2 safeties. Mix and match. Create mismatches before the snap. Make the quarterback actually think for once. What a concept. Think about what this means in real terms. When Alex Anzalone, God bless him, was the will linebacker last season, there were moments, genuine oh-no moments caught on camera, where he would be matched up in man coverage against a running back or a slot receiver, and you could practically see the opposing offensive coordinator salivating. You could see the quarterback's eyes light up. Anzalone was a capable linebacker, a solid run defender, a smart player, but asking him to run stride for stride with a speed weapon in open space is asking the impossible. And Detroit did it, repeatedly, stubbornly, all the way into the second half of the season when it was costing them games they had no business losing. Both Anzalone and nickel cornerback Amick Robertson are now gone, replaced with Roger McCreary, Christian Izien, and rookies Keith Abney II and Jimmy Rolder. Sideline report: this secondary room has been completely rebuilt with versatility in mind, and the message from Shepard and Campbell is loud and clear. We will never again hand a quarterback a free gift-wrap completion just because we refuse to put the right personnel on the field. Now let's talk about a player who had the kind of first season in Detroit that was equal parts promising, heartbreaking, and ultimately unresolved, and that is cornerback DJ Reed. When the Lions signed Reed to a 4-year, $48 million deal last offseason, the expectation was not that he was going to be Jalen Ramsey reincarnated. The expectation was that he would be a steady, experienced, professional cornerback who had proven himself across multiple NFL stops, San Francisco, Seattle, the Jets, and could bring that consistency and savvy to a Detroit secondary that desperately needed it. And for about 4 weeks, that is exactly what he was. Through the first 4 games of the 2025 season, Reed was playing like a legitimate starter, making plays, posting solid PFF grades, looking like the investment was going to pay off. Through his first 4 games, Reed recorded 16 tackles for pass breakups, 1 interception, and a fumble recovery, and his interception directly set up a scoring drive in Detroit's 34-10 win over Cleveland. Clutch points. And then it all came crashing down. Reed exited the Week 4 game against the Cleveland Browns with what turned out to be a grade 2/3 hamstring strain. He went down chasing Jerry Jeudy on a deep route and immediately feared the worst, later saying, "I thought I tore it off the bone. I thought it was a rep." Clutch points. He didn't tear it off the bone, thankfully. But the injury was severe enough to land him on injured reserve, and when he came back, something was noticeably, visibly different. The burst was gone. The closing speed was gone. That extra gear that makes a cornerback dangerous, that ability to explode out of a break and disrupt a route, it wasn't there anymore. Reed himself admitted as much, comparing his pre-injury play to his post-injury play. "It was like same thing, same technique, but guys were just running by me. I just didn't have that extra gear." Detroit football, that is about as honest as an NFL player is ever going to be about his own limitations. And it explains everything fans saw in the second half of last season, when watching Reed get beaten by receivers he should have been able to cover. But here is where the story gets exciting. DJ Reed did not just spend the offseason hoping things would get better. He went to work, and when we say he went to work, we mean he literally went to Panama for stem cell treatment on that hamstring. Not a cortisone shot. Not rest and rehab in the standard sense. Panama. Stem cells. This man was not playing around. And now? Early in this spring's OTAs, Reed is moving well, and looks like the player we saw in camp, and early in the 2025 season before the injury. Detroit Lions, the burst that was missing is reportedly back. The closing speed is reportedly back. And if you believe what you're seeing from the coaches and reporters who have been watching him work at Allen Park, DJ Reed is not the same gimpy, limited version of himself who struggled through the back half of last season. He looks like the guy Detroit signed. He looks like the guy who was making plays in September. He looks healthy. Now here is the important context for why this matters beyond just having a healthy cornerback. If Reed is truly back to his pre-injury form, then the Lions' cornerback room becomes something genuinely exciting. Because you've got Reed as a legitimate starting corner. You've got Terrion Arnold, the 2024 first-round pick, who was starting to find his footing before his own injury, a player who, before he got hurt, Campbell and the coaching staff genuinely believed was ascending into a quality starting corner. And you've got someone who, if he can just stay healthy for 5 consecutive minutes, could be the sleeper story of this entire defense in 2026, and that is RakeStraw. RakeStraw's career with the Lions so far has been one of the cruelest ongoing sagas in Detroit sports. The kid came out of Missouri as a second-round pick with real ability, real athleticism, the kind of instincts that make scouts drool, and he has not been able to stay on the field. Ankle injury, hamstring injury, shoulder surgery. Every single time this young man has started to get momentum, started to show what he can actually do, something has gone wrong with his body, and he's been shut down. It has been maddening to watch because the talent is obviously there. You can see it in the brief flashes you get when he's actually healthy and on the field. And the Lions, to their credit, have never given up on him. They've stuck with him, given him time, and now they're reporting something that should genuinely excite the fan base. Dan Campbell confirmed this week that RakeStraw has added bulk during his offseason rehab program, saying, "He's added a little bit of bulk, he's a little more dense than he was, that's always gonna help the body," and adding that he has no reason to believe RakeStraw can't withstand a full season heading into training camp. Sports Illustrated, now, if you know RakeStraw's story, you know why this matters. Listed at 5'11" and 188 pounds, a number that looked generous when you saw him without pads. He physically looked more like a track athlete playing football than a football player. Detroit Lions podcast, his frame was not equipped to handle the physical punishment that NFL corners have to absorb every single week. He was getting bumped off routes, he was getting physically overwhelmed, and his body was breaking down as a result. But now, he's added muscle. He's more dense. He's built himself into a body that can hold up, and that, combined with his natural athleticism and coverage ability, could make him a genuine factor in this secondary in a way that he simply hasn't been able to be up to this point. And that brings everything full circle, back to the macro vision for this defense in 2026. You've got Shepard at the helm, now firmly in his second year, much more comfortable in the role according to Dan Campbell himself, who said Shep now has a much better grasp of how he wants it to look, and is coaching the front, coaching the backers, and coaching the back end. Detroit Lions, you've got a schematic overhaul that will move away from the stubbornly base-heavy approach that made this defense so predictable and so exploitable toward a more versatile, nickel-heavy, matchup-based system that forces opposing offenses to actually game plan. You've got DJ Reed looking healthy and explosive again. You've got RakeStraw finally built for the rigors of an NFL season. You've got Roger McCreary and Christian Izien added to the secondary, both of whom can play multiple spots and give Shepard the flexibility he simply did not have last year. Campbell himself summed up the philosophy for 2026 perfectly, saying, "We've got kind of 3 options as to where we can go with this. It's still us, but it gives us, depending on who the other defensive end is, are we more of this 4 down? Do we become more 5 down? Do we become more nickel?" Detroit Lions, that is a head coach describing a defense that will no longer hand quarterbacks a cheat code by telegraphing exactly what is coming. That is a defensive coordinator who has looked at what went wrong and made a genuine, honest commitment to fixing it. And that, Lions fans, is exactly what you've been waiting to hear. Now, is everything perfect? Of course not. Brian Branch's Achilles is still a massive question mark. Kirby Joseph's knee situation is still being handled with extreme caution. Campbell joked that he's setting Branch's return timeline at December just to stop being asked about it. Yahoo Sports. But that kind of deflection only comes when the real answer isn't a happy one. There are still legitimate injury concerns in this secondary that cannot be glossed over, and the Lions are going to need depth and health in a way that has eluded them for most of the Dan Campbell era. But the foundation is there. The intelligence is there. The willingness to evolve and adapt, which was sorely, painfully missing last year, is apparently there now too. This is a Lions defense that has every ingredient needed to be a legitimate force in the NFC. Aiden Hutchinson is back and healthy and motivated, and already reportedly turning heads in OTAs. Edge rusher Hutchinson has expressed high confidence heading into the 2026 season, and is enjoying getting to know his new defensive linemates. Detroit Lions, the front 4 has been refreshed. The linebackers are more athletic. The secondary on paper is the deepest it has been under Dan Campbell. And now the coordinator running it all has pledged to stop being stubborn and start being smart about how he deploys his personnel. Detroit has not been a great defensive team in years. That's just the honest truth. This has been an offense-first organization for the entire Dan Campbell era, and for much of that run, the defense has been a liability that the offense had to overcome. But 2026 feels different. It feels like the pieces are finally, genuinely, legitimately in place to be a two-sided team, a team that can win ugly when the offense is off, a team that can close out games when it counts, a team that doesn't hand the opponent a free comeback because the defense can't stop anyone in the fourth quarter. This has the potential to be the year everything clicks. And if it does, watch out, NFC. Because the Lions are not coming to play around. Alright, Lions fans, that is the news, that is the breakdown, and that is why right now, in June, with training camp still weeks away, the energy around this team is absolutely electric. If you've been watching this channel, if you've been following along all offseason, you already knew this defensive overhaul was coming. And now it's official. Shepard has confirmed it. Campbell has co-signed it. And the players are out there at Allen Park right now, working, building, and putting it all together. If you want to be the most informed Lions fan in your circle, if you want every update, every breakdown, every piece of news as soon as it drops, hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the bell so YouTube actually shows you our videos. Drop a comment below and tell us what excites you most about this Lions defense heading into 2026. Is it the nickel shift? Is it DJ Reed's comeback? Is it RakeStraw finally getting healthy? Let's talk about it. We read every single comment. Smash that like button because it genuinely helps this channel grow and gets this content in front of more Lions fans who deserve to know what's going on. We are building something special here at Sports Talk Detroit, and you are part of it. Go Lions!